Chapter 1 Prologue. Tell me, do you ever feel a strange sadness as dusk falls? The two men sat at the spring, the water a glorious mixture of blues, yellows, and oranges as the twilight sun hit it at just the right angle. A gentle, relaxing gurgle echoed through the quiet air, only interrupted by the occasional bird call or the breathing of the nearby mare. The trees around them swayed in the breeze, the shadows of the leaves causing small light shadows along the shimmering water as it sang for them. One of the men, the one that spoke, was the older of the pair. He had short blonde hair that let his round ears show, and strong but kind green eyes. The man's build was sturdy and strong, adorned in a brown tunic and casual work clothes. There was a sheathed sword strapped to his back. He turned to his younger companion. Since I was a boy, I heard it was the only time where our world intersects with theirs. The younger man kept his eyes on the water, his deep blue eyes moving across it as it trickled from a tiny waterfall from deeper into the woods, the spring all but whispering. He too had a strong build, though he was still shorter than his companion. With dirty blonde hair and a handsome face, he was quite the eye-catcher, even with his out-of-place pointed ears. He wore a cream tunic, a single green sleeve over his left arm, attached like a disruptive fashion statement, and the clothes of a rancher showed his profession. This young man turned to look at his friend, silently urging him to go on. They say this is the one time we can feel the lingering regrets of spirits that are no longer with us. That's why loneliness always pervades the hour of twilight. Despite the melancholy words, there was a smile on the man's face, like he was reminiscing about childhood days. Heck, I don't know about all that, Russell, the younger man replied, his tone joking and jovial compared to the discussion at hand. Not something I've ever heard of before. Talks of spirits and the like were nothing new, though. Ordon Village rubbed elbows with a place called the Lost Woods. For as long as he could remember, he had been warned not to enter it because he'd been trapped forever and would become a spirit. He had even heard that forest spirits called Kokiri called the place home, appearing as eternal children. Frankly, he wasn't sure how much he believed in it, but he always avoided these woods, just in case. Russell let out a small chuckle and nodded. Well, you're right. This isn't the time to talk about such depressing things. I do have a favor to ask of you, Link. I was supposed to make a delivery to the royal family of Hyrule the day after tomorrow. You heard of that, right? The young man, Link, gave a small nod. Reckon I did. Heard the mayor asked you personally to do it. Need me to look after your house while you're out? No, it's not that, Russell replied with a small shake of his head. Kind of the opposite, really. I'd like you to go in my stead. He paused as Link's eyes widened just a fraction in surprise. You've never been to Hyrule, isn't that right? Spent all your life in Ordon province. I think it'd be good for you to see a bit of the wider world. You're an adult, you should stretch your legs a bit. Link rubbed the back of his neck, not having expected that request at all. You figure it's that important? Is Hyrule that amazing? It was true. He never left the province, but he felt no real need to. Everything he needed was nestled in a handful of square miles. Not that he hadn't been curious about the outside world, but not to the point he had a strong urge to see it. At the center of Hyrule is a majestic, massive castle. And there's the castle town that surrounds it. I figure the castle grounds themselves rival the size of our village. And that's just the center of the kingdom. There's numerous other villages and communities, not to mention other kingdoms like Holodrum and Labrina. There's a huge world out there, and it'd be a shame if you didn't lay eyes on at least a little bit of it. The way Russell spoke, it was like he was describing a fictional kingdom from a storybook. All of it created by the golden goddesses. The small speech really took Link by surprise. It seemed like this really meant a lot to Russell. Well, if you think it's that important, I guess I could. A part of him wondered if the real reason was because Uli was so far along in a pregnancy and he didn't want to leave her side. If that's all that was, all Russell had to do was say so and Link would have understood. Russell smiled and slapped his knee before standing up, stretching a bit. I appreciate it, Link. I'll talk to the mayor about it. It's getting pretty late though, so we should get back to the village, eh? Link stood up as well, going over to the nearby mare. She was a strong, sturdy animal, with an orange-brown coat and a beautiful white mane. You ready to head out, Epona? The young man asked the horse, walking over to her. On the mare's back was a bundle of sticks, Epona not struggling at all from its weight. She was a fine and powerful horse, one that Link adored dearly. Apparently, naming one's mare Epona was a generational thing in his family. As Russell walked ahead, Link turned back and looked back at the spring. Faron Spring, it was called, and apparently there was a spirit that guarded it. Large stones had been constructed by the waters, obelisks with swirled patterns that were most likely there to worship the spirit. The monuments had been there long before living memory, so no one was sure who made them. In any case, Link himself never saw any spirits, but he couldn't deny that he felt at ease when he was near its bubbling waters. But who could say? There was a lot about the world he didn't understand. Slowly and quietly, the two men and the horse went back towards home, the trees towering around them on either side of the path, guarding them from the orange twilight glow. It wasn't long before they reached a wooden bridge, hanging over a deep gorge. However, the trio showed no fear and crossed anyway, not paying mind to the creaking of the wood beneath their footfalls. Remind me, what is it you were supposed to deliver anyway? Link asked while the two were about halfway across the bridge. Don't think you ever got around telling me that part. Oh, didn't I? It's a ceremonial sword. I made it myself, Russell explained, keeping his tone humble. You're going to be presenting it to the princess herself, so make sure you wash any dirt off your face before you go. His last few words were in a teasing tone as he grinned at his companion. Link let out a short chuckle in response. Well, now you tell me. Reckon it's too late to turn back now, so I'll have to pretty myself up for royalty, huh? While he was hiding his shock with a joke, it did make him nervous. Going from the mayor to the princess of an entire kingdom, he had no idea how to handle that. It seemed Russell sensed Link's unease and clapped him on the back. Hey, don't worry about it, he'll be fine. You probably won't even need to say a word, and if you do, the servants will help you out. At this point, the two had crossed the bridge, Russell locking the gate behind him. That did ease Link's woes a bit, but he still felt butterflies in his stomach. Heck, he couldn't remember the last time he even talked to anyone new. Guess you've got a good point. Just remember you owe me one for this. His tone was only half serious. As Russell nodded, the two passed by another spring, Ordon Spring. It was smaller and isolated in its own little grove, but just as majestic as the first, and also boasting the small monuments of swirled patterned stones. The spring, too, apparently housed a spirit, but Link, of course, never saw it. At that point, it wasn't long before the village was reached, and Link and Russell unloaded the sticks from Epona and put them by the entrance. Link himself lived in a tree house just outside the village, a small stable built alongside it for Epona. And it truly was a house in a tree, the tree itself very tall and very wide, a large chunk of its bark hollowed out with Link's home built inside of it, a ladder being the only way to get to its front door. By the time the two had finished their work, Uli and the couple's son, Colin, had shown up to see Russell home. Uli was a pretty woman with short blonde hair, her stomach protruding noticeably with child. Colin took more after his mother than his dad, with softer features and also sporting short blonde hair. The kid had always had a meek stance about him, like he was always afraid of something, even when nothing was going on. Link said his farewell to the others as he tied up Epona to her post, patting his companion on the neck gently. Now alone, the young man climbed the ladder up to his home and went inside. The interior was nice and simple, his home more or less being a single, tired room for the most part. a sitting space near the entrance, a fireplace with a pot and other cooking utensils, and his food storage along with his sink. There were ladders leading to small landings that acted as separate floors. One that was what passed for his bedroom, which was mostly just a bed and his nightstand, and another landing above that which allowed him to look out his window. The only other area was the ladder leading down to the basement, but Link never went down there. Sighing, Link shed his footwear and slumped into the nearby chair. He was exhausted. Russell worked his fingers to the bone, but what else was new? Working up a swear did feel nice though, and he knew the older man was just making sure Link pulled his weight. Since he lived outside the village, he didn't pay any taxes, mainly since he couldn't afford them. Helping out as much as he did was the trade-off, essentially. He thought back to Russell's words, how Link had never been to Hyrule itself. His left hand raised and gently tapped at the point of his left ear. Link was the only one in Ordon Village with these ears, but from what he had been told by his parents, everyone in Hyrule had them pointed. Apparently they were to hear the voices of the goddesses, but Link had never heard anything like that. Every so often he got teased about them, but it was always in good fun, so he didn't mind it. However, it really did make him rethink the trip to Hyrule. It was his homeland, even if he had never seen it. Apparently a lot of his distant relatives were scattered about the kingdom, past generations of his family being known for having many kids. He had been told some also lived elsewhere in the Ordon province, while others left the borders of the province and Hyrule lands to further beyond. Maybe it was important for him to be with other Hylians, just to meet them, even if it was only once. Frankly, he never felt the urge to leave Ordon Village. Everything he wanted was within walking distance, after all. Link stopped tapping his ear and looked at the back of his left hand. There was a birthmark. 3 golden triangles standing out against his flesh, almost like a branding. It was the Triforce. That's what he had been told by his parents, and him having this symbol made him blessed, but he was never told exactly in what way. With some notable exceptions, his life had been relatively normal, but maybe that in and on itself was the blessing. This quiet, peaceful life he lived was what he desired, and what was a bigger blessing than that? It's not like he wanted to stay in Hyrule or anything, but a quick visit couldn't hurt at all. He had to admit he was curious, even if he hadn't taken the time to explore Hyrule on its own. Link assumed he'd just visit the town, see it isn't all that Russell made it out to be, and just return home. The young man liked how quiet and uneventful his life was. It made him feel calm and at peace. So calm, in fact, he was starting to feel his eyelids grow heavy. "Hey, Link!" A familiar voice called from outside, snapping Link out of his sleepy daze. Right away he knew who was shouting for him. Climbing up to the top floor of his home, Link opened the window and peered outside to see an older man with short brown hair and a long face. Yep, it was Fado, all right. The owner of the goat ranch and Link's boss. The older man was panting a bit, clearly having run from the ranch. It let Link know this wasn't a social call. "How you doing, Fado?" Link called to his friend. "Don't tell me the goats are giving you trouble again." He couldn't help keeping himself from grinning. It seemed like Fado was always having animal problems. Fado sighed and nodded. "They just won't listen to me, Link. Can you help me round them up?" Well, it was his job after all. Helping Fado at his ranch was Link's main source of income. Even when he wasn't on the clock, he ended up having to help herd the goats anyway. "Will do, but you'll owe me," Link assured cheekily. Yeah, I know. So can..." Fado started before trailing off, frowning as he looked over towards Epona's stable. "Hey, where's Epona?" Link frowned, unable to see Epona from this angle. "Huh?" Swiftly he leapt down the floors of his home and went out the front door. Leaping down, he looked into the stable and saw Epona was indeed missing. For a brief moment a panic rose in Link's chest, but then he realized what was going on. "Ilia again, I just know it." Fado looked relieved and nodded. "Yeah, I should have thought of that. She probably took Epona to the springs again. So, Can you go fetch her and get to the ranch?
Well, I will, don't worry. You go ahead and I'll saunter over and fetch my horse,
Link promised, going towards the spring at a light jog. He didn't mind how attached Ilia was to Epona, but he had told that girl time and time again to ask before taking his horse to Ordon Spring. The trip was short, only taking a few minutes, but when Link rounded the corner to the spring, he saw that his assumption has been correct. There Epona was, standing ankle-deep in the babbling spring water. The mare looked quite content, as most animals did when they were near the spring. With Epona was exactly who Link expected. A pretty woman his age, with shining green eyes and short brunette hair. She was patting Epona gently on the nose before noticing Link's presence. Turning to look at him, the girl smiled.
"Oh, hey Link,"
she greeted calmly, turning to face him. With a click of the tongue, Link shook his head.
"Ilia, I've told you 12 times. You can take Epona here if you want, but you gotta let me know first."
He couldn't even force himself to try and sound angry at her, so his scolding fell flat. This was made extra clear when Ilia let out a small laugh.
"Well, I was just washing Epona for you, so I'll take that thanks and apology now."
Like Link, she couldn't force herself to sound stern.
"I do highly appreciate that," Link admitted, walking into the spring.
"Still, you took my horse, so you'll have to pay." He shouted the last words as he swiftly squatted down, scooping a handful of water and splashed it onto Ilia. That got a surprised yelp from the girl, flinching as the cold water hit her.
"Oh, you'll pay for that, Link!"
What ensued was a brief, childish water fight as Epona stood by, not bothered by all the chaos unfolding. Once Ilia and Link had nearly soaked each other, they stopped and calmed down, both panting a bit.
"Okay, let's call it a truce,"
Ilia stated with a small grin.
"But hey, can you do me a favor? Can you use the grass to play that song Epona likes? I love seeing her react to it."
Link nodded.
"Sure, I can do that right now. I've wasted a bit too much time though. Fado needs Epona to herd some goats." And right after I washed her too. Oh well,"
Ilia said with a small sigh, watching Link go over to some grass, picking some that had the distinct shape of a horseshoe.
"See, that's why you gotta ask,"
the young man teased before blowing onto the grass. What came out was a beautiful whistling sound, forming a short song that Link's mom had taught him when he was just a kid. She called it Epona's Song, and apparently it was an old family song, and where Epona got her name. The song worked instantly, Epona jogging over to Link and began to nuzzle him, clearly pleased with the song.
"I do wonder why she loves that song so much,"
Ilia mused as she grinned wider.
"She goes crazy for it every time."
"Who knows? Apparently lots of horses in my family get all excited for it," Link explained to the best of his ability. A lot of stuff about his ancestors he only ever heard in vague mentions. Apparently his mom just wasn't terribly close with her family, so a lot of stuff about his lineage got lost over time. Some things remained, like the rancher life and the name Epona, but a lot of other things just faded over the years.
"Just one of those mysteries, I guess,"
Ilia said with a shrug as Link hopped onto Epona.
"Just make sure not to dirty her up so much, okay?"
Link shrugged in return. "I try, but don't go stealing her again if you notice anything." Before Ilia could reply, he urged Epona forward and rode out of the spring. The mare always rode like a dream, Link feeling a soothed sensation whenever he took her anywhere. He really loved the horse like a member of his own family, and it did irritate him a bit more than he let on when Ilia snagged her away for a bath or some such. But he knew that his friend meant well, so he couldn't exactly hold a grudge. By the time he got back to his treehouse, Father was already gone, surely back at the ranch by this point. He hoped that the older man hadn't been waiting too long. Link realized he got a bit carried away joking around with Ilia. Once more, he gently urged Epona forward, the mare going at a slow, safe pace as she entered Ordon Village itself. In the twilight, the village was starting the process of winding down.
Link looked about at the expanse of the settlement, the dozens of homes he could spot from the entrance. All around, families were mingling about, many going inside or rushing after their kids so they could hunker down for the night. While the village had been safe for numerous years, no one wanted to be lingering around after dark if they could help it. Some of the villagers were getting some last-minute chores done. He spotted one man tending to his pumpkins, and one woman was sweeping up her porch, chastising her kids as they ran through the workspace. The orange glow of the setting sun made the area feel tired, as though the village itself was going to go to sleep once the sun set, the people and the homes alike. Link had Epona go slowly on ahead, not wanting to get in anyone's way. A few of the folk stopped to greet him, and he returned the gesture in kind. Some tried to ask him how he had been doing, and he had to politely tell them he had something important to do, but could talk some other time. After passing by the mayor's home, he went to the path of Ordon Ranch, one of several in the area, to see what he had to deal with. The path dumped him off at a large field where Fado was waiting nearby.
Oh, there you are, Link. I almost thought you weren't gonna show up.
Sorry there, Fado. Had to talk with Ilia for a bit. Link apologized, looking to see about 10 of the goats were still milling about. Ordon Village was famous for its goats, or more specifically the cheese made from their milk. The goats here also had an unusually characteristic, that their horns go around and fuse together, forming a circle. I reckon you need me to herd up the stagglers there?
I guess it's fine. You're here now, and that's what matters.
Otto mumbled, then nodded at Link's question.
Yeah, I just can't get the last few stragglers into the pen. You and Epona gotta get them to the stables, okay?
Link grinned and nodded. Sure thing, Fado. Come on, let's get those goats, Epona. He let out a small yell of excitement as the mare charged forward towards the goats. What followed was Link and Fado working together to get the goats into the stables. Epona weaved around the field with ease and moved the smaller animals towards their destination. As they got close, Fado was able to wrangle them and get them into their pens. It wasn't long before all the goats were away nice and secure. Once it was all done, Fado wiped the sweat from his brow as he looked up at Link, who was still on Epona.
Thank you all for the help. I should be covered for tomorrow, so you can just relax, okay?
Sure, that sounds good, Fado. I don't know if Russell told you, but I'll be leaving the village the day after. It felt so strange for Link to say. The farthest he had ever been from Ordon Village was a bit past Faron Spring after all. Gotta make this delivery for him.
Oh, yeah. You did mention that,
Fado exclaimed as he nodded.
I was so wrapped up in the goods I kind of forgot about it. It's all clear, so don't worry. It'll be strange leaving the village for the first time, huh?
Link nodded, back, a twinge in his gut eating at him. It will, but I'm sure I'll manage. Anyway, I gotta get heading back before night falls. See you around, Fado. As Fado gave his farewell back, Link rode off back to his home. The village was all but silent as he went through it again, everyone settling in to rest for the night. After getting Epona settled into her stable, he went inside and flopped onto his bed. He was still reeling at the idea of actually leaving his home. Even if it was only for a day or two, he wondered how it'd go. Heck, it wasn't like he even had clothes fit for meeting royalty. Princess Zelda surely would know that some villages out from the sticks wouldn't have anything like that, but he still worried a bit. Something in the air just didn't seem right, though. It was something Link only noticed a tiny bit. The goats were a lot more restless lately, for instance, and he kept hearing the howl of wolves, which used to be something that occurred once in a blue moon. For a week or two now, it was a nightly occurrence. Maybe he was just feeling paranoid for some reason, he wasn't sure. There was just something that didn't seem right. He just kept telling himself that it'd be fine. He'd make the trip to Hyrule Castle, present the sword to the princess, look around the castle town a bit, and head back. Wanderlust wasn't anything that Link ever specifically felt, but he figured there was no point in not taking a look around while he was there. Heck, maybe he'd even have some fun. But he knew his friends in the village would be waiting for his return. Honestly, he felt a little bit silly, worrying so much over such a small trip. He'd be fine, and he knew it. Russell made these sort of trips dozens of times, and he was okay. It was fine for him to do this favor for Russell. He owed the man a lot. He had practically raised Link for half his life after all. Link was there to see Uli go through her first pregnancy, and he had been fascinated as her stomach grew and grew. And after he was born, Link very quickly began to see Colin as a younger brother. If anything, that family was like Link's very own. He had never said it to Russell's face, but he considered the man like a father. But something told him that Russell was aware of this. As Link pondered, he heard the howling of a wolf off in the distance. It was a different kind of howl, but he couldn't work out why. It sounded sad, solitary. A strange sort of intelligence behind it, like it wasn't just some beast. And for whatever reason, upon hearing the howls, Link felt settled and tired. Before he knew it, his eyes were closed, and he was drifting off to a deep sleep.